I can record. Excuse me, but I can pick up where we left off. We've been looking at names, words, and sounds, and uh, a part of my hope is by and through exploring this, the learner of Scripture and the believer in the Bible can focus on what the text is actually saying and not what people contrive it to say from a religious, dogmatic, rote-based experience. And often, as I talked about last week, which we'll do this series and add to it, but names, words, and sounds, is you have many people today, and they've been doing it for a number of years, who espouse this ideology, and the ideology comes under a banner, and it is attached to a doctrine. And that doctrine, when you investigate it for purity's sake, meaning where did you get this from? And then at some point you have to ask people, where are you taking me? And who told you to eat off of that tree? Uh, the doctrine essentially derives from what is called the sacred name movement. The name may vary. For some people, it's Jehovah. So when you talk to Jehovah Witnesses who come out of the sacred name movement and for marketing reasons, and I'm using that word for marketing reasons, they separated from the sacred name missions that they were connected to and contrived their own sacred name, which one could argue is biblical if you want to go there. But they say unless you call his personal name Jehovah, then you cannot know him. And that is a portion of the sacred names movement's argument. Others who came along began to argue or articulate that his name is Yahweh. And if you don't say that every time that you speak of him, then you cannot be saved. And then others, the latest iteration is Yahuwah, and people become really dogmatic about it. And as we studied a few weeks ago about truth and deception, the truth hurts. The truth is, that is the latest iteration of the name, at least in the United States. Some people may use it outside of that. And it may have preceded this date, so I wouldn't argue that, but argue against it. But when I first started hearing Yahuwah and people saying, if you don't say this, because people left Yahweh and said, if you don't say Yahuwah, you don't know him. And I mean, like, look, man, you know how long I've been saying some other name and I've been walking in the path, and now you come along and tell me it's some new knowledge that I have to. That first started in '05, '06. And or if it started earlier, it resurged in 2005, 2006. And one of the primary people who espoused it came out of Virginia and spread down, and new people were saying you can't say Elohim, it's Allahim. And they went on and on and on. And when you watch these patterns over, if you see it the first year, it's like, okay. The second year, and then you see somebody else come up with a new name 5 years later, and then it's a new name, and then it's this dog chasing his tail. And they go in these circles. And the reality is, this is what the Bible says: forever learning and never coming to the knowledge of the truth. Because the truth is, and this can be investigated, this is why I went over truth and deception. The truth is verifiable. And the truth is that the living creator of all of the multiverse does not care about what sounds, words, or names that you use in reference to him. He just don't care. And how do I know he doesn't care? Well, there's a few eminent ways that you can tell this, and we can go into the text further to explore. One eminent way that we know is because in the Bereshit, there is no evidence that Adam called him any of these names that people espouse today. Clear and evident. He never said, Adam, say this when you talk to me. It don't say that. As a matter of fact, when I talk to these super Hebrew groups who like, you must use Hebrew or else you such and such, such and such. Sir, are you telling me Noah spoke Hebrew? Yeah, Noah spoke Hebrew. Sir, Abraham was the first Hebrew, very first. Abraham came out of Ur of the Chaldeans, which is Mesopotamia. The Chaldeans, the uh, the Chaldeans, the families that came out of Ur, the families that came out of Mesopotamia, the Assyrians, they spoke a dialect that would mirror what became Hebrew, but Hebrew is a bastard language. People think it's pure. It's not. Oh, the English, the Greek, the this. It's all bastard language because language is if you study etymology, linguistics, and the history of language, language is a social contract. It's also a social construct, meaning language is designed for you and I to use socially to express ideas to one another. And we know when we use these words what we're talking about. But the religions have got a hold of it and decimated the Bible by saying things like, he said right here, my name is such and such. And again, I'm just a practical Bible teacher, and I'll go toe to toe with anybody who has this doctrine. Line all of them up, and we will piece by piece, parcel by parcel, context by context, examine if what you are saying is true. And I'm saying that what people say is not true. So again, Adam never spoke Hebrew. You can't prove he did. Abel didn't. Seth didn't. None of the patriarchs did. You can't prove Noah did. You can't prove that Enoch walked with God and spoke fluent Hebrew. Well, Abraham was the first Hebrew. He was the very first. And how did he become Hebrew? Is because the word essentially means to cross over. He crossed over one land to another, and that's how he became Hebrew. He transitioned into an identity, and the Almighty told him, I'm going to make great nations out of you. And essentially, they developed uh, what would ultimately become a language, and that language was a variation of other languages around. The other kind of nomenclature that I see people cleave to is that they prefer one word or sound over another. And again, that's not an issue if it's preference. You can have any preference you want. But when people start espousing these ideas that, well, this word is pagan if you use it. Well, you know, as I say to people, for the sense of parceling information out, I normally don't even release my entire argument. So people will get about 15, 20% of it, maybe 30. On a really good day, you might get 45, 50. But I generally try to see how people respond to it. And I remember someone explaining to me that if you say Jesus or if you say, okay, you say Yeshua, like Yeshua versus Yahshua versus Yahushua versus Yehoshua versus, like, sir, by the time you go through all of this, you telling me that one person who died, buried, and resurrected got nine different names or nine different variations of the name, and you saying he got to say one? And I wish I had the recording. I'll probably do if I search for it. One young man who I was in a conversation with, and I probably mentioned this before, who refers to me as Zakane. He told me one day, he said, it's obvious you don't care about his name. I said, excuse me? Excuse me? Since you referred to me as elder, and since you're saying that you know me enough to know that you would make this statement, can you tell me what his name is? Like the Savior that came? Or the Father? Can you tell me what his actual name is? Like just say the one name it is. So, well, I don't know. I just think we should be as close as possible. Sir, stop the shenanigans. See, you can't say you're going to be as close as possible and then you're going to say, you got to say this. See, the truth is verifiable. See, if you want to know who Jordan is, you can go back to his parents. You can look at a document called a birth certificate and say, what did they call him? And it's verifiable. You can do that. So you can't do that in this sense. So a lot of people are parading around these ignorant arguments. And when I say ignorant, I simply mean that they're unlearned. They come out of the sacred name movement, and the sacred name movement profess the doctrine that unless you say these particular names and sound it out this way, you cannot be saved. And for the student of the Bible, whether you're watching this on YouTube, whether you're here tonight, I'm saying you do not want to be caught up in such dogmatism. Because ultimately, if you search hard enough and you come across the right people, you're going to be made a liar. And how I found out, generally, as I said, I started wearing fringes and keeping the commandments and celebrating feast days and getting married and learning about the Holy Spirit and walking in the righteousness and trying to stop sinning under Jesus, Jesus of Nazareth. I don't have no problem with that name, word, or sound. None. And if anybody does, I say, please bring your whole entire argument. And it will go through and say, well, which one you want to use. And I'm going to show you that just about every sound, name, whatever you want to use, if you want to say that this word is pagan or idolatrous, that every one you use is pagan or idolatrous. And I'm saying bring any of them to me. And I'm going to show you through history. Now, we won't get into all of that today, but I'm saying that for argument's sake. And I'm not saying like I'm making it up. I'm saying I have the documentation for it. Now, when you look at it, all right, this word right here, this didn't you just say that that was the Father's name? Right here, you see that that's come from some other pagan custom. And these people existed before Hebrews existed as a nation. So some of the arguments, again, my point is that we don't want to be caught up in such dogmatism. But if it's our preference, to say, hey man, I say this versus that. Don't chase people up and down the street saying do this or die. It's just the Bible doesn't even teach that. And the last thing I'll say before we get started, when you hear people who say, well, he said, if my people which are called by my name, which name we talking about? Because his name is Israel. That he gave Jacob the name Israel, and he said that that's his name. He said he gonna destroy the city that's called by his name. I mean, I don't really know of a city that's called Yahweh or Yahuwah or whatever version. Like, I do know it's a city called Jerusalem, and that's a city called by his name. So are we talking about like, again, stop in the name of the law? Are we staring up looking for the letters LAW glowing over our head? And if we do, will we catch a bullet in our back because we're looking for the name of the law? To me, that sounds just as ridiculous as the Almighty having a digestive system and a buttocks. And if people believe that, I won't disturb them, but my imagination has spread far beyond thinking that he has literal feet. Although he articulates himself in the Bible like that, I don't think he's 6'4" and wears a size 12. Just, I don't think that. So these things were meant to challenge our notions of that. So we looked at this last time, and this is just a little bit of recap. But as believers, or Hebrews, can you say words like Jesus, Lord, and God? And we express different thoughts on that. Does the Almighty accept the use of these words? And we express different thoughts on that. And then, some of the research people say, well, this goes back to such and such. Okay, let's look at those things, see if these words go back to that. We also started to watch this video, and at some point, I want to go by piece through this young man's video. Again, he's a former Seventh-day Adventist. This is under fair use, right? And it's just for pedagogical sake. I don't have any issue with his teachings in general. I just think that he's unlearned in certain areas. And again, if he was cross-examined, you would able to see, yeah, these aren't good arguments. And maybe I'll email him one day and say, hey, let's talk this out on the platform and see if his argument still stands. But this is really about examining such things. So we looked at some words. We looked at, Exodus 23. We looked at 1 Kings 18, Acts 19. And we were looking at Acts 19. We were seeing that the the spirit that jumped on the man, he used these words. He said, Yeshua I know. And then even if you use like Jesus, right? Jesus I know, and Paul I know, but who are you? And it makes sense when you start to read the Bible in its context, when things like the text says, and I'm just paraphrasing, it says things like, um, excuse me, Paul said in Corinthians, I think, if any man come and preach another Christ or another Mashiach or another anointed, like he's saying, don't be deceived. So you could have the same word or title or name or sound and be a whole nother teaching. See, that's the thing we have to pay attention to. What teachings and practices accompany the sound and name that you're using? And most people don't go that far. So when you say, as the young man said in this Truth Unedited video, he said, well, Kanye West uses Jesus. Okay, is that your argument, sir? Is that your argument? Because if that's your argument, then I'm going to say that, let's say for people who like to use Yahweh, there's a guy named Hulon Mitchell in Florida who was huge in a religious circle, and he used the word Yahweh. So, so you're saying if you use this one name, then that alone determines whether you're equated with truth or not? See, it doesn't. It's the practices and the behavior that you keep, not the sounds that come out of your mouth. And we'll examine some of that. So we'll look at a couple more scriptures. We talked about the difference between resume and resume. And again, we looked at there, and there. And these are different constructs, but I was just pointing these out that each one of these means something different. But when we looked at resume and resume, these are things that would be noted by what we eventually looked at, which is diacritic marks. And when you look at diacritic marks, they are accents or signs on a word that begin to, or it says that they are small signs that are added to letters in certain languages to alter their what? Pronunciation or distinguish between different words. And why are diacritic marks so important is because these marks are typically used in written languages to indicate changes in sound, stress, tone, or meaning. So then we looked at, cafe, facade, resume, and jalapeno, right? But then I asked to do the homework. When did diacritic marks begin? We'll look at that in a few moments if you did that work. But we looked at this word in Hebrew. And before diacritic marks came to be used in the language, which, you can tell me when you came up to look at that word, when diacritic marks began. But this mem, lamed, kaf, we said that this word was malek, right? And that word malek, essentially, when you look at it in Hebrew, and we looked it up last week when we met, is the same word as what other word in Hebrew? Does anybody recall?
This
Molech.
Malek or Mo Melek?
Yeah, Molech, right? So Molech, Mem Lamed Kaf, and Molech, the deity that you sacrificed and burnt their children to, are the same letters in Hebrew. Or the same word in Hebrew. And it wasn't until a certain point in time that they began to use essentially like a diacritic mark, which is mostly used in the written language to say, we need to make sure that when you say this word, Mem Lamed Kaf or Malek, we need to know if you're talking about the deity or you're talking about the king. Because you could just say Malek ben David or Malek Dawi. And if you said Malek Dawi, you talking about King David or the deity that you sacrifice children to. And you're equating David, the king, with the deity that you sacrifice children to, and that could be under certain pretenses considered blasphemy. So the important diacritic marks later began. Now, they might have used the language or uttered it differently, but again, what would make it different when you said it out of your mouth? See, this is why we're talking about names, words, and sounds, because some people just say, no, that's what you said. No, sir, I'm not talking about what I said. I'm talking about what I meant by what I said. So when we hold, let's say, God or Lord or Jesus to these things, then we also need to have Melech or Molech. So you need to strike Melech out of your conversation. I'm just saying we have to keep our argument consistent on both angles. So next, if we looked at this word in Hebrew, and you don't have to be perfect in Hebrew, but does anybody know what this word in Hebrew is?
L.
Sorry, can you say that again?
L.
L. Now, L is a Hebrew word that, if we look it up, one of the things that it means would be mighty one. One of the things that we would look it up and we would see that it means would be mighty one. And El is short for Elohim, right? So we can look this word up. And you can look this up to verify if it's true or not, because again, I said the truth is verifiable. El is also the chief deity of the Canaanite pantheon. So it's the equivalent of Zeus in the Canaanite pantheon. Well, Zeus is the highest deity, just like they had maybe like a slew of different deities in Greek or Roman mythology. In the Canaanite slew of deities, El would be the chief deity. Now, there were many other Canaanite deities, but El is also used in connection with the creator of the heaven and earth. Now, it could be one or two different things. Maybe the Canaanites worshiped the true and living El, or maybe there's a Canaanite deity named El, and the Almighty uses El, and the two are different by what? Not the sounds that come out of somebody's mouth, but the customs and practices that they practice. So if somebody said, "Oh, I worship El," and again, you can look this up, and we won't do it all tonight, but you can look it up in whether your Blue Letter or your lexicon. If you looked it up and saw that 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 Yahuwah was or Yahweh was considered El, and then you saw the chief deity of the Canaanite was considered El, what would separate your sound from the chief deity or some Canaanite regular, just, African warlord who's like, oh, I'm gonna cut this goat's neck and sacrifice it to El? What is separating the two of you who are using the same sounds and name and letters? Well, it's the practices that separate you. When he goes over there and drink blood and you pour the blood out to the ground, that is the delineation between the two of you. When you say, hey, I got to rest on the Sabbath day, and he say, look, the Sabbath day is the biggest day I make money, then that separates the difference between the two of you. It's the practices. It don't make a difference what sound come out of your mouth. This is why the man in Acts chapter 19, the Spirit said, Yeshua I know, and Paul I know, but who are you? See, I don't recognize your practices. Your practices, when you say this, you're not attached to these individuals who keep these practices. Therefore, your words don't even make a difference. And this is why we have to, again, go over letters, words, names, and sounds. So here's another one, right? Anybody know this Hebrew word?
I don't know this one.
God.
Gad. Gimel Dalet. Gad. And let me pull this up because I do have a reference for it. And I referred to this. I don't know. I don't know if y'all saw the video I did on birthdays. The But let me pull this up. Oh, oh, look at that. Huh. I'm gonna pull this up and give me a moment here. I thought it was right on the cusp of where I had it, but apparently it's tucked away somewhere else. So let me pull this up. Ay, 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 ay. All right, a few more seconds. I thought I had it right here tucked away, but apparently not. But yeah, so this is Gad, and boom, 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 boom. All right, it's going to take me probably a few more minutes to pull it up, but if you look into the word Gad, it is, oh, I got another way to do it. Got another way we can look it up. Yep. All right, so we'll look it up this way. We're going to look at Isaiah chapter 65.
Mm.
And in Isaiah chapter 65, it says, But ye are they that forsake the Lord, that forget my holy mountain, that prepare a table for that troop, and furnish the drink offering unto that number. So let's look up the troop that is being used here. Furnish a table for that troop. Now here you see that same letter, Gimel Dalet, Gad. Okay. Now when you look up furnished for that troop, which Gad is, Gad, if you say the tribe of Gad, right? Like it's the same sound, Gimel Dalet. You say the same sound, Gad. What does it say right here?
God of fortune,
And what is it? What type of deity?
a Babylonian deity.
So I'm saying when people make the argument about Jesus or Lord or God, again, I don't care if you don't want to use it for preference, but when you start making a biblical argument saying, oh, you can't say this or else, then I'm saying when you list the 12 tribes and you say Gad or Gadite, I'm making the argument, whether you're doing it or not, I'm saying you calling on a deity of fortune, a Babylonian deity. And most of us would say, that's not what I'm doing. Well, nope, you use that sound. You use those letters. You use that word. This is why names, words, and sounds become asinine when people start to say, well, no, if you use this sound, you're saying this. Again, it is a phase of learning where people get kind of dogmatic about it. But to the student, I'm saying, listen, don't get into that. And why? Don't do it dogmatically because it's not the truth. Again, if you want to say because of preference, by all means. I can go into any religious circle anywhere, and if they want me to say Jehovah, I'll say Jehovah. It won't bother my conscience. Now, if it bothers your conscience, that's something different. I could say Yeshua, I could say Yahweh. I go to some places and they say Yahweh Shah or Yahushua or Yahushua. All right, man. If your conscience is so offended since I don't say Yahushua or Yahushua, like I just can't say Yeshua. I gotta say Yahushua. Or you think I'm talking about somebody totally different. I think it's asinine, number one, because you know when you said Yahushua or Yehoshua or Yahawashah, you know that when I said that sound that came out of my mouth, you know I'm talking about the man who died, buried, and resurrected for your sins. You know that. You know when you saw me walking in with this little beard and a hat on and some fringes and keeping a Sabbath day or a feast day, you know what I was talking about. But you're gonna make a huge deal out of it. Like you can't be saying the same. What you're saying since I don't say the same sound. That's your argument. I'm saying it's just not true. Meaning, what am I saying is not true? That if you don't say this, you're condemned to die by the Creator. That's not true. So we see that this Phoenician proper name, the god of fortune, is the name Gad. Now, again, I have another uh, resource for it when we look up birthdays. I think I did that whole study on birthdays, and I think, oh, it might be right in here. Look at that. I don't know if you saw this or not. I put it on YouTube. It was a black paper. I might have hid the video because I was circulating it amongst a small group first. Let me see. Birthdays, Apocrypha, Tacitus, and bam, here it is. Another place I found it. Gad. Now notice, again, this is for people who make an argument. Gimel Dalet. Now I'm saying before the diacritic marks, you said Gimel Dalet, you're calling on a deity. Okay, notice here. Gad, deity. A deity or genius of good luck, worshipped by Jewish apostates, probably in post-exilic period, together with destiny. And then it quotes many in Isaiah 65 and 11. The nature of the deity is clear from the Aramaic Greek bilingual inscription in the Palmyra, where he is identified with fortune. His coat was particularly popular in Haran, and the reference in Isaiah may be connected with Edomite or Arab penetration in Palestine after the exile. But what is it telling us here? Now, for this resource, just so you know what we were looking at, this resource is the Interpreter's Dictionary of the Bible. And under Gad, we see that this is a deity. And many, you know, the god of fortune. And then, you know, I didn't go all into this in this particular series, but sometimes people also want to use the word happy. Whether they say happy birthday, which is, that's not even biblical. But even if you like, oh, how you doing today? Oh, I'm happy. Do you know that happy is a god also? It's another deity. That's when people are like, okay, you can't say Monday, you can't say Tuesday, you can't say Thursday, you can't say Friday. Okay, okay. Now, if you want to say first day, second day, no argument here. No argument. But I'm saying, if you say happy, you're saying another deity. If you say God or Gad, you're saying another deity. If you're saying like, and the list goes on. So at some point, it's just like, what are we actually talking about here? I'm trying to encourage people to get away from wicked practices, not letters, words, and sounds. Because language is a social construct, meaning when I'm using some sound, it's almost like we negotiate the meaning doesn't negotiate us. And again, I'll give you an example, and so hopefully this doesn't sound crude, but I was in DC when I first moved to DC. I remember telling one of my students, and I may have told you this before, um, her and a group of students needed a ride to the train station. I'm like, hey man, y'all ready to roll? And one young lady I said it to looked at me with this venom in her face and started cussing me out. She was maybe like 23, 24 years old. I ain't no roller, Mr. Moses. Da 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 da. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You call me a roller. Well, roll in DC or a roller means a woman who is available for any inappropriate activity. I said, Deborah, where I'm from, when I say, are you ready to roll? That means get in an automobile that has four wheels and the tires move forward because y'all need a ride to the train station. I don't know why you would ever think I was saying anything different to you, but it's a social construct. That's what language is. And her social construct, meaning the way she negotiated the word roller or roll with other people, because I didn't even say she was a roller. I said, are you ready to roll? Which I guess being a synonym of roller, if you ready to roll, like Mr. Moses trying to take me somewhere and do something inappropriate. Like, ma'am, no, ma'am, under no circumstance. Under no circumstance. And God forbid she see this video, but yeah, there's a checklist of people I'm trying to like not do stuff with, and you like at the top of the checklist, right? Like it's just like you're not, no, ma'am, no. You don't, no, I'm not trying to do something with people, and you be like one of the ones I'm like, oh no, not her. So no, we're not. Rolling didn't mean that. And why am I bringing this up? It's a social construct. And under the social construct, the way that we negotiate words is between us to use. And the dictionary was written by words that came from us, people. And we put them in the dictionary, not here go the word, not let it fit us. Like, like Yeshua said, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Words were made by people, not words were made for people to fit in the framework of. So if I want to use a word out of context or use a word inappropriately, if I want to say tangiblate, for example, like, hey, we have to tangiblate the kingdom, like some guy said 100 years ago, I'm well within my right to do that. Well, that's not in the dictionary. Sir, Google wasn't in the dictionary 15 years ago. You can't tell me what words can be used and can't be used. It doesn't work like that. We can make up a word right now. People discredited the word ain't for a long time. And one of my Hebrew comrades told me ain't is a Hebrew word. And it has a very similar meaning. So again, we can use words however we negotiate. And if we say, hey, I don't want to use these words for preference sake, that's okay too. So like, you don't have to say a word. All right. So Gad, meaning the The tribe was also the deity of fortune. And he was worshiped by what? We just read it in the uh, Interpreter's Bible, Dictionary of the Bible. We just read it there that it, Gad was worshiped by apostate Jews. But I'm saying if you say the word Gad, I'm saying anytime you pronounce it out your mouth, just to be facetious, you worshiping that same deity. Up, you said Gad, you worshiping the God of fortune. That's not what I'm doing. Well, how do I know for sure that's not what you're doing? It's your practices. If you said Jesus to me, and when you didn't say nothing about no Sabbath day, you didn't say anything about no feast days, anything about keeping an appropriate food diet or doing any of that, I just know that you worshiping another Jesus, so to speak. Or if you said Jesus and I interpreted it as Yeshua, or I was in Spain somewhere and you said, Jesus Christos, and you didn't say Yeshua of Nazareth, and you took me to some Sabbath fellowship and we had all appropriate food to eat, I'm saying, hey man, mi hermano, you my brother. But if you took me to somewhere and you like, hey man, we got some raw crab here, and then take a bite, I'm gonna know by your practices, not some sounds that come out of your mouth. So here again, we won't look at each one of these, but this is Zadi and Sadek. Well, Zadi was the first letter in there, but the meaning of it is righteousness, but it's also a Canaanite deity linked to Jupiter. So anytime you say, if you say Melchizedek, then could I make the argument that you're saying the king of Jupiter? Like you see how it starts to feel like the more you investigate this starts to sound like a little asinine now. It's like I'm not really sure that this makes sense. And this is why we started out with truth and deception, because I don't think people should be deceived. Now, again, I'm talking to people, and I mean, people go so far as, and sometimes I don't say nothing because I don't want to discourage them. And I'm like, it'll take me like 2 hours to explain all this to you. And then, all right, just keep saying, all right, cool. Whatever you want to say, just say it. It just take me too long to explain it to you. Okay, so we see that. Now, let's look at Isaiah chapter 54. Isaiah 54. And we got a few more texts. And again, I won't go through all of it, but I'm going through enough of it to examine to see if it begins to make sense to you. Isaiah 54, and it's on our screen.
I got it.
We'll start at verse, let's say, 1. Oh. Yeah, we'll start at verse 1 when you get it.
Verse 1. Sing, O barren one, you who did not bear. Break forth into singing and cry aloud, you who have not been in labor. For the children of the deserted one are more than the children of the married woman, said Yahuwah. Verse 2. Enlarge the place of your tent and let them stretch out the curtains of your dwelling places, spare not. Lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes, for you shall break forth to the right and to the left, and your seed inherit the nations and make the deserted cities inhabited. Do not fear, for you shall be put to shame. You shall not be put to shame, nor hurt. You shall not be humiliated. For the shame of your youth shall you forget. You shall forget and not remember the reproach of your widowhood anymore.
Okay, so this text is beginning to essentially talk about the growth of the children of Israel, how they were at one point, there were more who were living in desolation and isolation than they were essentially when he would gather them back. And it said in verse 3, for thou shalt break forth on the right hand and on the left, thy seed shall inherit the Gentiles and make the desolate cities to be inhabited. So A thing to know is a lot of times the Bible is talking about desolation or wilderness. It's often talking about the people who became like a desolate wilderness, or the people who didn't do the right thing and they were practicing wickedness. He compared them to like a wilderness, right? Or desolation, or a city that was uninhabited. And those are other studies, but just a thought. So now read verse 5.
Verse 5. For your maker is your husband, Yahuwah of hosts is his name, and the set apart one of Israel is your redeemer.
Okay, now we can look this up in various texts, right? So we're going to just look it up where we see now. For thy maker, right? Now this maker is talking about who? You just said Yahuwah of hosts, right?
Hmm.
Okay. Now thy maker is thy husband. What is the word for husband in this text? Notice here, thine husband is Baal. Your maker is Baal. Baal, the deity. Is that what the text is saying? Now, don't notice because we'll look it up.
Strong's H 1166. Baal. Baal.
All right, so your maker is Baal or Baal, even Yah of host. So let's look up Baal. Because people hate this word. They hate Baal to be used according to the Creator. To marry, to do what? Same thing a husband would do. To rule over. Your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you, or possessor, or owner. And anybody, any woman who is married, any woman who is married, they should know, according to the Bible, your husband is your owner. That's the way the Bible uses the husband. Or he is your possessor, or he is your authority, or he is your Lord, or he is your master. That's the way the Bible uses the language. Now, again, women don't probably want to be ruled over, or they don't want anybody to be their husband. They're in the true sense of the word. But here it says Baal. And what does Baal mean? To be a master, to rule over. And is this what Isaiah is saying? Or is Isaiah saying that the Creator, Yahuwah, or Yah, or Yahweh, is the deity that the Canaanites worship? Which one is being said here according to the context of the text? See, that's why the truth is so important. The context of the text tells us really clearly that essentially Yah of hosts is his name, and thy Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel, the God or Elohim or mighty power of the whole earth, shall he be called. Why is it making mention of him as the owner or the master? Well, when you read a little earlier, it talks about the children essentially coming back into right standing. And why is it saying this? In verse 6, it tells us, for Yah have called thee as a woman forsaken versus a married woman, and grieved in spirit, and what? A wife of youth, when thou was refused, saith the Almighty. So at one point, Israel as a nation was refused. At another point, he brought them back to them and said, look, I'll be your husband again. Or the word that I use here is your owner or your master or your maker. And again, if you ask any conscious Hebrew woman, call them and ask them, hey, does your husband own you? Now, if she's conscious, she'll tell you in a drop of a dime, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. My husband is my owner. That's the way the text is understood. And again, people don't like it, but that is the way it's understood. So that's one other text that we are looking at. Any questions, we'll address them shortly. All right, let me move this text up. Let's go to 1 Peter 1. 1 Peter 1. 1 Peter 1, and we are going to look at Sarah and see. And I really just want to read verse 6. We can read the whole thing, but I want to pair this with, oh, no, let's actually read a little earlier. Let's start at 1 Peter 1 and verse 3. Now, Isaiah just called uh, the the people coming back to the Creator, and they said, "Thy Maker is their husband, even Yah of hosts," or their Maker is Baal, or your owner. And let's talk about the Creator. Now, let's see if the Brit Hadashah couples or staples these thoughts together, or does it go off on some tangent and say something different? So 1 Peter 3 and verse 1.
I got it. I got it. Chapter 3, verse 1. In the same way, wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that if any are disobedient to the word, they, without a word, might be won by the behavior of their wives. Having seen your blameless behavior in fear, your adornment should not be outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on dresses.
Now, some churches and people teach that, oh, see, women can't braid their hair and they can't put on jewelry. That is not what this text is saying. It is saying essentially, don't have all of this outward beauty and not have the inward beauty, which is a chaste conversation coupled with fear. Now, read verse 5.
Verse 5. For in this way, in former times, the set apart women who trusted in Elohim also adorned themselves, being subject to their own husbands.
Okay, they were subject, meaning in alignment, or in one sense, obedient to their own husbands. Okay, verse 6.
As Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him master, of whom you became children, doing good and not frightened by any fear.
Okay, so Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him master. In this text in KJV, it says Lord. Well, let's look up the word Lord. Kyrios should be the Greek word Kyrios.
Strong's G 2962. Kurios. Kurios.
Kurios. Okay, I said it wrong, but here it is. Okay. What does it mean? He to whom a person or thing belongs, about which he has power of deciding, master, Lord. This is the same thing that Isaiah was saying. The possessor or dispossessor of a thing. The owner, one who has control of the person. Master. Same thing that Isaiah was saying. Thy husband is thy maker. Baal, master. That means it just possesses. That's it. That's what it means. Now, when people want to say it also means some Canaanite deity, well, I'm sure Sarah wasn't calling Abraham the Canaanite deity, but that's the word that's used. That's the sounds that came out the mouth. But what is the delineation between the Canaanite deity and a husband? Well, you can say, oh, well, in the ninth century, they had this diacritic mark. Well, diacritic marks are only applicable when you write something. Otherwise, you pronounce something to intonate that you are saying something suggestive, right? So most of us know when we're trying to say something like sarcastic, we put a different tone on what we're saying. So the word okay is just O-K-A-Y. That's the word okay, or O in the letter K. But if Jordan keeps talking, I'm like, okay. Is that the same okay as, hey, y'all want to go get something to eat? Okay. Are those the same okays? No, they're not the same okays. And we know how to negotiate that in language. And when we write it, how do we know the difference between one sound and another sound, even if it's using the same words? Because we may accentuate it differently when we speak. And when they began to write it, at a certain point, they began to put these marks on it. Oh, this is the sarcastic okay, and this is the regular okay. That's the same thing they did for Baal, or Master, or Lord, or Gad, or Melech, or Molech. People knew the difference because it was accented by sound. And then when it began to be written language, it was accented by the written language. So here, I guess I could move that up. Here, and this will be our last text for right now. Let's go to Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24, one of my favorite texts. And we won't go into all of this, so I won't start at verse 1. And again, a lot of evidence and validation that I'm leaving off the table, but Matthew 24, and just to skip right to the point, I'm going to read verses 3 through 5.
I got it.
Yep.
Verse 3. And as he sat down on the Mount of Olives, the taught ones came to him separately, saying, Say to us, when shall this be, and what is the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? And Yeshua, or Yahusha, answering, said to them, Take heed that no one leads you astray. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah, and they shall lead many astray.
All right. Now, does anybody know what verse 5 is saying, or can you tell me what you think it is saying?
I think that it's saying that there will be many imposters or many people claiming to be me, but they're not me.
Gotcha. Anybody else?
I always took it to mean the same thing Brother Jordan said, but also people claiming that they have also people claiming to have some type of knowledge that the Lord left them personally and trying to twist the scriptures.
Gotcha.
But also people, yeah, like saying that they're the Messiah. That's true as well, I think.
Anybody else? Well, let's say here, he said, Take heed that no man deceive you. And this is a common repeated phrase in the Bible. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived. Don't be deceived. Be not deceived. Take heed that no man deceive you. Deception is so rampant. This is why we went over truth and deception. That he's constantly saying, another texts are saying, don't be deceived. He said, For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, or I am Christ. Now, what people take this to say is, many shall come in my name, saying they are Christ, or they are Messiah. Now, just in your own generation, or in the last, let's say, 15 years, do you know many people that came and said that they are the Messiah? Can you think of like many of them? Anybody think of many of them?
I know there was several cult leaders. David Koresh, I think, said that he was God. Whoever it was that started the I don't want to name the exact cult of the LDS, but that specific cult of the LDS has been having all the issues, claimed that he was God and then a prophet and then so forth and so on. There was someone calling himself Ben Yahweh, saying he was Mashiach. I can think of at least like 4 or 5 within the last 15 or 20 years that have pulled that particular card.
Can you think of many of them? Four
If
or
I
five
may,
is not that many.
I mean, how do you know he didn't mean many until like in the future? You know, like if you took it over like 50 years, it wouldn't be many, but if you took it over like 2,000 years, it would be many.
So here's an example, and again, I'm not playing this whole video. I probably won't play much of it. Oh yeah, with the commercials. Come on.
New Yorkers are fed up, but instead of
Come on with the commercials. All right, so I won't play this whole video, and again, this is just used under fair copyright law, et cetera, et cetera. So I won't play the whole thing, and then you can look it up if you so decide. But there is a young man in Kenya right now claiming to be Jesus Christ. I'm like, oh, that's fake. He should be claiming to be Yeshua. Keep the name separate from what I'm saying. Like, think about the person who died, buried, and resurrected. This man is claiming to be Yeshua of Nazareth, right? Under the English version of the name, right? So I want to look back at this scripture, and I want you to dare to look at it this way, because this is what I believe he was saying. For many shall come in my name, meaning the letters and sounds and the personage that is represented of me, the man who died, buried, and resurrected on the third day. They'll use any variation of my name, saying, I am the one. I'm the one, not they're the one. I am Messiah. Many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, and shall deceive many. And the way we tend to read it is, many shall come in my name, saying, they are Messiah. He said, well, that's going to happen too, because he said that later in the same text. He said later that there shall be false Christ, verse 24, for there shall arise false Christ and false prophets. He said, then if any man say unto you, lo, here is Christ or Messiah, or there, believe it not, for there shall arise false messiahs. See, what he's saying up here is totally different. Here he's saying what actually happens today. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Messiah, and shall deceive many. So how does this apply to names, words, and sounds? I'm posturing to say this. More people come in his name, or the letters, sounds, and words in English, and say, oh, he the one. Yeah. You know, they got the white picture up there. Now, while the white picture is not applicable, the name is. That's who they're talking about. That's who they claim to represent. And they say, yo, he the one. So think about Benny Hinn. Think about Mike Todd. Think about Creflo Dollar. Think about T.D. Jakes. Think about what's my other Joel Osteen. Think of all the people just in our generations, mega churches everywhere, and then think about how long historically that has been happening, and compare that to the many who said that they the Messiah themselves. And I'm telling you, you're gonna find two different minis, meaning there are more people who came and said, oh, he's the one that died, buried, and resurrected. And in his name or his letters, words, and sounds, Jesus, they taught keep Christmas, go hunt for Easter eggs. You don't got to keep the dietary law. You can get married 15 times and you can wife swap. And now they even got people teaching that two men can get into bed with each other and marry each other. And they're using and saying the man who died, buried, and resurrected. Yeah. And what have they done? They have deceived many. So I'm saying when you really start to look at the name, words, and sounds, I'm saying that this name, he even said in his own teachings, and this is just one of them, and I can go to other ones. He said in his own teachings, they're going to use that name. And Jesus is an acceptable name to fit. Now, if you read it the other way and say, well, no, they're saying they the Messiah. That's not what he said. He talking in first person. He literally said his disciples came to him and Yeshua or Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that now imagine that you talking to him and his first statement to you is take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, mine. Whether they say Yeshua, they say the transliterated version of Yeshua, which is Jesus. They say Jesus. They say all of that he's recognizing in this phrase. And they say, I'm Christ. And they shall deceive many. So when we think about these names, words, and sounds, I'm imploring us to go far beyond what people use as nomenclature. Again, if you want to use words out of preference, I have no issue with that. But when we start interrogating the narrative to see if these things are true for truth's sake, like you have to say this or die, the Bible just doesn't support it. Now, again, this is only a modicum of evidence, but I'll pause there and I will see if you have any thoughts, questions, or comments. Naya, I saw your hand up.
I'm good.
Oh, ask.
No, just that specific passage that you were reading, it kind of made me also think about this concept we were talking about a couple weeks ago about what is a name, right? Because Christ isn't actually a name either, right? It's this idea that you were kind of talking about when you were talking about Benny Hinn and them claiming to have been anointed in his authority to come and do a thing. And I think it kind of harkens to what you're talking about concerning not necessarily words and sounds and phonics, but more so executing righteousness and failure to do so. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, if I get what you're saying, you're just tell me if I'm on the right track. You're saying that they may have used his personage as the anointed one, but they didn't execute righteousness. But I don't know if you're saying that does connote that they used his name or that they didn't.
Well, more so a couple weeks ago we were saying that, how we were reading about how you shall not have their name in your mouth and or it shall not be mentioned among you. And we're talking about this idea of like what is a name actually? It's not just phonics, right? It's an authority. So coming and claiming to be in someone's authority, and then even Mashiach meaning to be anointed, right? That I have been selected and his name's been put on me to execute a thing, but you're not doing what he did, so it can't be in his name that you're doing anything because you're not doing what he did. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, in a sense, that's what I'm pointing out. Like it's the practices. This is why he said many show, and maybe it's like Matthew 7:21 or 21:7. He said, many shall say in that day, have we not prophesied in thy name? Now I'm saying that they were literally using a version of his name, and they were literally saying we're doing it in your authority, and he's saying, I never knew you. They thought they were using the sounds, and the sounds didn't mean anything because it was the sounds and the customs together that would have accented some type of authority. And they said none of that made a difference.
Yeah, because a name is character. And so you can't come in someone's authority and not mimic their character. You know what I mean? Like I can't say I'm coming, Elder Moses sent me and you should and then do a whole host of things and say a whole host of things that go against specifically what you're saying. If I do that, people should know that I'm not actually coming in your name because I'm not aligned to the character that they know you to have.
Right. And I think that's part of what I'm expressing the deception is because they have the sounds, but they don't have the identifiable traits that accompany it. But most people don't know the identifying traits because they've been deceived. They're hearing, oh, I use this name. And let's say, and I'm trying to, for parity's sake, because people have deceived people in the name of Yeshua, then are they more righteous because they deceive people in the name of Yeshua? I'm saying no. It's some people who you take any variation of them. I mean, the guy Hugh Lyon Mitchell, he called himself Yahweh Ben Yahweh in Florida. He used Yeshua. Matter of fact, there was another group who I appreciate their work and their sacrifice. They moved to the land of Israel. They said Yeshua of Nazareth, but they also said that this new man is the new Messiah, and that if you, I read in his book, he said, you know, you got to go back to the Edenic diet. And again, I love these brothers and sisters, so I'm not saying this out of hatred. They had to go back to the Edenic diet, and he wrote in his book, if you eat a vegan diet, you shall never die. Less than 4 years later, maybe 5, he was dead. But he used the name of Yeshua. So did that make him better than the person like Creflo Dollar who used the name of Jesus? He deceived people. He said he was the Messiah. And he said Yeshua was the Messiah. He just was the Messiah for that generation. He the Messiah for this generation. So would it make one better than the other? And I'm saying when we put them in parity, no. You could use the sounds of a Hebraic name and still come with practices and customs and the teachings that are not according to Yeshua of Nazareth. Or you can say Jesus, and I don't care if you Benny Hinn or you go to church every Sabbath, and if you teach in deceit, they're the same in my book. And I think that's what the Bible expressing. Now, I don't know if that concurs with what you're saying or if you were saying something different.
I concur.
Well, you don't have to concur just for concurring sake, but and you don't have to like feel like you're wrestling publicly if you want to meditate.
No, I'm not feeling pressured. I agree exactly. That specifically, that's exactly what that passage spells out.
Gotcha. Jordan, yes, sir.
Just to make sure I'm tracking and following what y'all are talking about, would a decent example be in the Bereshit with Jacob deceiving his father Isaac by saying he's Esau, even though he's not Esau, putting on the goat's fur, goat skin, and deceiving his father, saying, "Yeah, I'm Esau, give me my birthright." Would that be kind of in a similar sense of people coming in the name of Yahushua or Yeshua?
I mean that's a creative way to look at it, and it could be, but it's like the end of it is you weren't really like he was pretending to be the person of.
Hmm.
And when we read that Matthew 24, I don't conclude that they're saying that somebody is saying they're the person of. They're saying that man is the person, but using his personage and his name, title, or his existence, let's say, I think that's a better way to put it, they deceive you. I mean, you literally, and I can exaggerate so many different points. You have people who they may say Yeshua, and they say, according to Yeshua of Nazareth, like I've heard this before, who said in the book of Matthew, ye shall take up serpents and not be harmed. And they have people who believe, quote, get into pits of snakes and touch these snakes and claim that nothing happened to them because they believe that that's what he told them to do, to show, because these signs will follow those who believe. And I'm going to tell you, when I go down to your church and you tell me Yeshua told you to get in the snake pit. I'm gonna say you alive from the pit of hell. And I'm not getting in no pit. I don't need to prove that I'm not gonna be. No, that's stupid. That's not what he was talking about. But people use his name and they claim that they were in his authority, but he never told no. Where did you see Peter getting into a snake pit? See, this is the evidence. Where did you see them do that? It's almost the equivalent of somebody say, well, he said, eat my blood and drink my flesh. See, that's a carnivore. Well, show me where they did it. If you show me where they did it, you got me. I'm gonna stop believing this thing. But you can't show me where they did it. You can say to me what he said do, but he used that even like, like a metaphor. Show me where they actually did it. So it's similar to what you're saying, but I think that the difference is he was coming in the person of versus just using the name. Hey, I'm Esau. And he's like, man, I don't think this is Esau. Any thoughts, Nick?
Yeah. Oh, I think I just muted you, did I? Oh, all right. Yeah, no, that was great because I'd always thought of that passage as people coming in and claiming to be Jesus or to be the Messiah. Not realizing that they would, but when you spelled out for me there, it really helped me. I was like, oh my gosh, wow, that makes so much more sense. With all the charlatans around the place, because they are doing a lot of deceiving. And like you were saying earlier, or like I was saying, I just assumed that the only way to make that fit is to say, the many would have to be over like the thousands of years till he came back. But that makes a lot more sense. So I'm just chewing that over. Yeah. The name is good. This is good study. It gives me some more ammunition because I'm always like, I don't know if this happens to all of y'all, but whenever I'm traveling and I'm in the Lord and I'm flowing, some people always hunt me down from some group or the other, wanting to discuss their doctrine. So I've like forgot I interacted with the Mother God Church.
Oh, that's one of my favorite churches. Mother
Yeah,
God.
just like
They
like
and you know what, the amount of brown people that attend there, because I think it's
yeah,
mostly like Asian and Asian families, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, at first I was like, okay, you guys do Shabbat, okay, boom, you guys do the feasts, awesome, check, all the stuff. Then they started like pushing hard. Like I didn't hear any, Jesus, well, Holy Spirit, get saved, get baptized, none of that. They were just like, hey, did you know that there's the mother? I was like, man. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy that you could be like, doing like 95% of everything and then miss the one big critical key character out of everything. So yeah, no, I just start taking little notes in my phone, in case I come up anywhere, so whenever I interact with people, I have an answer for them. So this is really helpful.
Now, did you go to the Mother God Church? Because I haven't been, but I want to go, man. I don't want to sit in the back because something go down. I want to be close to the door.
No, no, I've never been. What happened to me was I was in I used to work in Virgin Islands on like cases down there. So I was down there and one of my, I was like every morning wake up, read, get in depth, get like half an hour word going on in the Lord. And one morning I was just like, oh, I feel like I'm extra flowing today. Something's gonna happen. So one of my coworkers was going through something, her son was gay and everything, so she needs some prayer and explanation and all that stuff. So that was like over breakfast, and then lunchtime I'm chilling, and I go to the restaurant, and these guys just run me down in my car, and they're like, "Hey," and that's how I met them. but I never got to 10. Yeah. But I mean, the one I'm thinking of, I think they basically start convincing you that the Holy Spirit is Mother God, and then and that the Holy Spirit is this like North Korean or South Korean woman
Well, it
whose
was her
husband died.
husband, but her husband died. So the
Oh
wife took
yeah,
over.
yes.
Yeah, we
Real
should
quick,
go.
wait, are those the ones that go off and they have those giant stadium marriages?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I think so.
Oh, okay.
Sun Yoon Kim or something.
There's two. I think yeah, the one you're thinking of with the marriages is the Unification Church, which I think is a branch of theirs. But the one I'm thinking of